Hello everyone, I'm Kalen North, and today we're going to be talking about basic strategies for Lightning's Swift Strike. Lightning's Swift Strike is an offensive spirit whose focus is on destroying buildings, but can also make slow powers go fast, a fairly unique mechanic. Let's jump right into the game. Now, for the strategy in this video, we're going to be looking at Lightning's Reclaim Loop strategy. The idea here is that we want to take advantage of our high card play count to play lots of cards every turn. And so, as often as we can, we're going to just take our reclaim cards and play the same 3 or 4 cards over and over again until we wipe out the invaders. In order to enable this, we need to do 2 things. One is we really want to get to 4 card plays on our plays track. The other is that we really want to get to 2 energy per turn on our presence track. Thus, we're going to use Lightning's middle growth option, placing 2 presents a turn for the first 2 turns. First turn to clear the top, or to move 2 off of the top track, and the second turn to move 2 off of the bottom track. We're actually not going to play any cards on turn 1. That'll let us set up for a 3-card play on turn 2, which will turn on our innate Thundering Destruction. If we do play cards turn 1, it's more expensive using Raging Storm, and we won't be able to actually afford to play 3 cards and get Thundering Destruction on turn 2. So, in this case, less is more. We want to wait. Alright, add 2 presents from the top track. Coverage is very important for Lightning. You want to get every land on the board within range 1 of a Sacred Site. On board B, this means that we need to go into land 2 or 3, or 4, I suppose, early on if we want to get coverage on lands 2 and 3. And if we want to get coverage on land 8, we're going to need to go into 6, 7, or 8 at some point. We'll probably do that next turn. Invaders explored in the wetlands, which isn't great for us. They're going to build a city in land 6, but there's not too much we can do about that right away, so we'll simply take the blight in land 6 and worry about destroying that later once we've scaled up a little bit more. I'm not going to play any cards turn 1, as I mentioned. This is to enable us to get our innate on turn 2. And now turn 2, I'm going to place 2 more presents. I'm going to go ahead and put it in land 8 itself from the card place track. That'll let us play 4 cards. We only have the energy to play 3 of them. But we can play these 3, get Thundering Destruction at level 1, and now destroy 2 towns this turn. Lightning's Boon is not a very useful power in solo. In multiplayer, it's going to be a lot stronger, letting your teammates go fast. But as is, our special rule, which lets us make a power go fast for each air element we have, is going to be enough to make all of our powers fast. I'm still going to use Lightning's Boon on myself, just because we have to use it or skip it. And then I'm going to use Thundering Destruction on the town in land 1. Now, land 1 is handled for Ravage. Land 6 is going to Blight. Often with Lightning, you need to take 1 or 2 Blight in the early game while you're scaling, but usually that's not going to be a big problem, and you'll take total control of the board shortly thereafter. Harbingers of the Lightning and Shatter Homesteads, I actually want to play in the slow phase. I'm going to use Harbingers to gain a Fear and push a Dahan into land 5, and I'm going to use Shatter Homesteads to destroy a town in either lands 3 or 5. So I'm going to go ahead and finish using powers. Let the invaders ravage in the wetlands. We take 1 Blight. And the invaders explore in the mountains. Alright, I'm going to use Harbingers of the Lightning, pushing that Dahan from land 1 into land 5, which gets us a Fear because there's a town there now. We waited until after the build specifically so we could get that bonus Fear. And then Shatter Homesteads, which gets us 2 more Fear, earning us our first Fear card. Now we begin the Reclaim loop. We're going to reclaim, gain a new power, and gain an energy. This is going to lead to us gaining a total of 3 energy per turn, 2 from our track and 1 from our growth option, which is just enough to play Lightning's Boon, Harbingers of the Lightning, and Shatter Homesteads. As a result, when we draft powers, we really want to focus on 0-cost powers or powers with fire elements, or ideally fire and air, that can either replace or go in addition to the powers we're playing. So, let's see what we get. Alright, we have a couple of good choices here. So, let's go through the bad ones first. Pull Beneath the Hungry Earth is a powerful card. It can deal 2 damage pretty easily in a sand or a wetland. It generates fear. It's very nice in that regard, but it has terrible elements for us and it costs an energy, so we don't want it. Gnawing Rootbiters is a cool effect, being able to push up to 2 towns, and it costs 0, which is good. But, again, the elements just aren't there for us. Gift of Living Energy costs 0 and has a fire element. This means we can use it to help trigger Thundering Destruction, and we can get energy to potentially play cards like Raging Storm, or, if needed, switch into a major strategy later on in the game. We will almost always have the 2 sacred sites for Gift of Living Energy, so it's a particularly nice power on Lightning. Finally, Lure of the Unknown has fire and air and costs 0. It's basically a strict upgrade over Lightning's Boon for us, because we can play it for 0 instead of 1, and it has a useful effect every time we play it, plus it has the air element to make one of our slow powers go fast. We may or may not want to play Lightning's Boon in addition to Lure of the Unknown if we take it, because then that'll let us get up to 4 fire elements and 3 air elements, which is enough to destroy a city with Lightning's special or innate power, Thundering Destruction. In this case, I actually like Gift of Living Energy a little bit more just because of what it lets us do later on in the game, and Lure of the Unknown, while it's cool and can prevent builds, isn't necessarily going to do as much, given that we usually want those builds to go through so that we can destroy towns for fear. So I'm going to take Gift of Living Energy, and then this turn I'm going to play Gift of Living Energy, Harbingers of the Lightning, Shatter Homesteads, and we can choose to play Lightning's Boon if we want, or not. I'm going to play it because the invaders explored in the mountains and I want to take out that city ASAP. So I am going to try and get my Thundering Destruction innate up to level 2. I won't always want to do that. This is one of those cases where I do want to, but you're going to have to decide based on the situation you're in, if there's a city that needs destroying right away. So we finish playing cards. Gift of Living Energy goes fast and gives us energy. One consideration to make now, once we start gaining new cards, is that if we don't have Lightning's Boon or we don't have enough air elements, we may have to use some of our powers in the slow phase rather than simply choosing to. In this case, that's not an issue. We still have Lightning's Boon. We still have 3 air elements. We're going to be able to deal Thundering Destruction to land 2 and Shatter Homesteads to land 3. That prevents us from taking any damage in the Ravage, as well as getting rid of that city so we don't have to worry about it next turn. I am going to let Harbingers of the Lightning wait until later in the slow phase because I want to let them build in land 2 first. And I also want the Dahan present to counterattack in land 3. So we'll finish using powers. We get a fear card. Isolation, we get to remove a town or explorer from a land where it is the only invader. So in this case, we're going to deny the town build in land 7 or land 2. I like to deny inland lands more than coastal lands, just because often adjacencies can be cut off. In this case, it doesn't matter too much because we've got land 6 built up. But I am still going to clear land 7. And each player may push 1 explorer into a land with more towns or cities than the land it came from. There's only one choice for that, and it's not actually a good one. We'd rather have the explorer die in the Ravage than get pushed into land 6, so we're going to just skip this fear power. Invaders ravage in the sands and die, build a town in the mountains, and explore in the sands once again. Now we have Harbingers of the Lightning. I'm going to push 1 Dahan from land 3 into land 2, getting us a fear, and I'm going to leave a Dahan behind for a potential counterattack, not this turn, but the next turn. Now we continue our reclaim loop. I'm going to reclaim cards, gain a new minor power, and we have Elemental Boon, which is useful. It always has the right elements for us. It does cost 1, which isn't ideal, but with Gift of Living Energy, that's much less of a problem. We have Call to Isolation, which is a very useful effect, but it's off element. It does have a 0 cost, which is really good, and we could take advantage of it for that. But I'm probably not going to play it even if I draft it, just because I have a preference for some of my other powers like Gift of Living Energy. Encompassing Ward gives us some defense in our lands with presence, which is our sacred sites in the case of Lightning. It's not really going to be too useful here. We are going to see them build potentially in the sands this turn, but that's not going to be as important to stop as just trying to get rid of the rest of the buildings at this point. Call to Tend is not the most powerful here. We could potentially clear a Blight. We could push some Dahan. It's a slow power, it costs 1, it's off element. We don't really want it for this case. I'm going to take Call to Isolation because it is the most likely useful one. Because we have Gift of Living Energy, we are going to potentially be able to play Raging Storm at some point, and so Elemental Boon loses a lot of its appeal. So we'll just take Call to Isolation and move on with the Reclaim Loop. Now this turn, I want to clear another city. I want to take out the city in land 6. So I'm going to need to play 4 powers. I'm going to play Gift of Living Energy, Shatter Homesteads, Harbingers of the Lightning, and thanks to Gift of Living Energy, I can actually choose to play Raging Storm instead of Lightning's Boon. In this case, I actually am going to do that because Raging Storm will let us deal an extra damage to one of the explorers in lands 3 or 5. That'll allow us to prevent a build there. So I'm going to finish playing cards. I'm going to Gift of Living Energy myself again. I'm going to use Thundering Destruction in land 6. Take out the city. And I'm going to use Raging Storm in land 5. Finally, we only have 3 air elements this turn, so we're not going to be able to use both Shatter Homesteads and Harbingers of the Lightning fast. In this case, I want to use Shatter Homesteads because I want to allow this Ravage in the mountains to be under control. So we're going to Shatter that Homestead. We get a Fear card. Each player chooses land, gather up to 2 Dahan, then 1 damage if Dahan are present. That'll be nice for clearing land 3. We don't need to gather any Dahan, we can just kill the Explorer. And now the Invaders don't build in either land. Invaders explore in the wetlands, which is fine. We'll push some Dahan into there, just to get the Fear. And then this next turn, we don't actually need to do much because we've already hit Terror level 2. We just need to get Shatter Homesteads back and take out this last town. For the sake of going through it, I am going to analyze which powers I look at and which one I would want to take. I'm going to go for the minor deck again. And just take a look at what we have, see if anything is particularly appealing. Visions of Fiery Doom is a nice power. It's on element, it has that fire element. It does cost 1 though, but on the flip side it also gives 2 fear. We're almost always going to have 2 fire for the elemental threshold. It's less useful in this case because right now we don't have any invaders in our lands, and so we don't really need its effect, but it could be useful at some point. Voracious Growth is a nice power, largely because we can make it fast using our air elements or using Lightning's Boon. It's off element and costs 1 though, so we usually aren't going to want to take it unless we really need that 2 damage in a jungle or a wetland, which does clear a town for 1 energy, which is useful. Drift Down into Slumber is a good defend power. We're generally not going to be taking defend powers. We want to destroy lands and set them up as single explorers ravaging against some number of Dahan. But if we did get into the case where there was a built-up land that we needed to defend for a counterattack, Drift Down into Slumber would be a fine choice if that land were a jungle or sand. It's not great elements for us. Air is good always, but not as good as fire, and 0 cost is good, but it's still going to be situational. Shadows of the Burning Forest is nice in that it costs 0 and has fire element, but it has an unfortunate targeting restriction of you need to have presence in a land with invaders. Shadows of the Burning Forest can potentially push a town and explorer if you're in a mountain or jungle. That part of the card is really not going to be too interesting to us. Really, we want it because it's a 0 cost fire element that causes fear. In this case, again, we don't have any invaders in our lands with presence, and so Shadows of the Burning Forest isn't going to be useful. I'm going to take Visions of Fiery Doom because I think it's the most utility power we've got there. It's 2 fear at the worst, and it's potentially much better than that if we actually got an explorer into the sands or the jungles again. Now, back to the game. We really only need Shatter Homesteads this turn, so I'm just going to play it and win the game here. But if we did need to do more, we could play 4 cards, we could set up Thundering Destruction, we could set up Raging Storm to potentially clear a land or take out a land with multiple explorers, like that wetland at the end of the game. And a lot of that's enabled by the fact that we got Gift of Living Energy. Most of the time you're not going to be able to play Raging Storm, regardless of what you do, just because it is so expensive to play. that's it for basic strategy for Lightning. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you get a chance to experiment with this strategy and other strategies. Let me know if you have any comments in the comments section below, whether it's something you disagree with me on, something I messed up in the video, or something that you really think should be added. Thanks for watching. Bye.